All right, well, welcome to another edition of Delayed Offside. Coming at you live from our basements, I guess. This is our 6th year in production, and we've got some changes here. Last year, we came back bright and strong as ever with a single episode announcing how we were not going to be gone, that we were going to be back strong as ever. And then we did one episode and we didn't do another one since.
Life
notice
got
some
real.
changes have occurred. Go ahead.
I said life got
It was before that.
Oh, dude, December hit and it was a disaster.
Right. And hockey had been on for like 4 months.
Exactly.
So you'll notice some changes, mainly one that this is a video as opposed to a SoundCloud. Is that what was it called? What do we used to use?
Hello. Can you see me? Hello.
Can you wait? Thank you. And you'll notice that 2 more people have been installed in. One-time guest host Sanjay and a longtime Leafs fan and prognosticator Ryan. Adam's pointing, but I don't think they're going the same directions on mine as they are. So we'll just see how that goes.
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, so welcome to the episode. We're switching things up a little bit. We're going to have a rotating cast here of 4, and by rotating, I mean this is who it's going to be. And so we can welcome Ryan Poulin and Sanjay to the pod. Adam and I are here as always, and we are going to start things up by talking about some of the stuff we're going to be doing. We're hit right off the bat with a preview of the Canadian Division, aka the North, and the battle for the North and what's occurring by doing a little bit of a recap and some preview and some prognostication or predictions. So with that, we're going to get going with the Edmonton Oilers regular season summary speed run. Bum, bum, bum.
The Edmonton Oilers began the season on fire, becoming the first team in NHL history to start the season with 5 straight come-from-behind victories. On November 10th, Connor McDavid registered the 400th point of his career, becoming the 13th player in NHL history to reach that total in 306 or fewer games. The accolades would continue for McDavid. On November 14th, he set a career high with 6 points in a game against Colorado. Of course, that would lead to McDavid being named the first star of the month for November. At the All-Star break, the Oilers were second in the Pacific, with 57 points in 49 games. Both McDavid and Leon Draisaitl made the All-Star team. On February 14th, Zach Kassian was suspended for 7 games after kicking Eric Chernak in the chest, his second suspension of the season. The Oilers were buyers at the trade deadline, trading for Mike Green, Andreas Athanasiou, and Tyler Ennis. Leading the league with 23 points in February, Draisaitl was named the Player of the Month. The NHL season was suspended on March 12th. The Oilers finished second in the Pacific and 5th in the West with 83 points in 71 games, a 96-point pace. Now let's take a look inside the numbers. These stats are all situations per 60 minutes and are from NHL.com and Natural Stat Trick. The Oilers were below average both offensively and defensively, and horrible when it came to puck possession. This team relied on their special teams, which were elite, first in power play percentage and second on the penalty kill. They were also great in takeaways, and good in the grit department, finishing top 10 in hits and block shots. Though the team was below average offensively, there were some tremendous individual offensive seasons. None better than for Draisaitl, winner of the Art Ross Trophy. After topping the league with 110 points, he also took home the Hart and Ted Lindsay trophies, and was named to the NHL First All-Star Team. And that was the Edmonton Oilers regular season summary speed run.
That is our regular season summary speed run, which is like a long, complicated way of saying a recap of the season with graphics. So that's our part there. Thank you for you guys for those videos. Those looking great. Keep that up. Keep that good work coming. We're going to talk about the Edmonton Oilers here a little bit. We're going to talk about the regular season. Now, the Oilers came into the season probably with the same high hopes that they have every season, but also with the fact that they were probably a little bit more battered and bruised. They've been kind of plagued with the conversation and around like McDavid, whether he was happy, whether he wanted to be here. Had they made enough sufficient changes? The old GM was fired and so forth. And so the season, they came into the season with a little bit of more, I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for here is, but a little bit of fire, I guess, under the butt, that things had to be better, that things had to change, and that they had to be different than they had been. And the regular season kicked off with the Edmonton Oilers finishing with a 37-25-9 record. And then thus making a simple run to the playoffs. So let's take a look at the Edmonton Oilers here at this point in the stage, which was how do people thought they were going to do beforehand and how they ended up doing. So we're going to go to Pilon first. How do you think about the Edmonton Oilers? How do you think about their season? Where does it stand with you? Was it successful? Was it not?
Well, I think obviously Draisaitl, McDavid had amazing seasons, finishing 1 and 2 in scoring. I think that's the first time two players on the same team have finished 1 and 2 since I believe it was Martin St. Louis and Steven Stamkos did it. So obviously they were great. Their power play was amazing. Their penalty kill, I don't understand why, but it was really, really good as well. So they kind of rode their top players. Their elite players are among the best offensive players in the world, and they rode their special teams to a great regular season. I will say I still think they did have a lack of scoring depth, and 5 versus 5, their defense was not very good either. They really did rely on those special teams.
The penalty kill. So what are your thoughts on the Edmonton Oilers, since they're your closest rival and the one that's really kind of tainted you towards life?
Life's been good, man. To hate on the Oilers this past decade, so I really can't complain. I would say it's been a success. The Oilers, no joke, but they made the playoffs, right? So anytime you make the playoffs when you haven't done it in a while, no shade there, but the fact that they made the playoffs, that's a success. Going in, if you told any Oilers fan they would be second in the division and they would make the playoffs, they would take it. Another success, and I think this was a huge success, is James Neal had 20 prorated goals, according to the NHL. So because of that, we get a 3rd-round draft pick. So that's another success. In terms of on the ice stuff, yeah, man, I think Pilon hit the nail on the head. McDavid, Draisaitl, 1-2. Take your pick on who's the best player on the team. Those two carried the whole team. They're carrying the franchise right now. They're pretty much asked to do everything. They're scoring, and they're scoring at a record pace. As he said, they finished 1-2 in scoring. You can't really ask for anything more from your 2 top players.
For sure. Hey, Sanjay, I just want to touch on one thing you said. You said you couldn't really ask McDavid and Draisaitl to do much more. And yeah, they had amazing offensive seasons, but they were both negative plus minus in the season. And, Draisaitl was the first Art Ross trophy winner to have a negative plus minus since Wayne Gretzky. So I think, they could
talk about useless stats though.
Well, hey, they're letting in just as many goals as their scorings, right? So I think that, going into this season, they could be asked to do a little better away from the puck as well.
That's interesting. Adam, what are your thoughts on the regular season?
I thought their regular season was really good. They were projecting upwards. They were 3 points away from first in the Pacific Division behind the Vegas Golden Knights. So, they had a compete level that was crazy and really coming on, especially with the acquisition of Yamamoto coming up from the AHL. He added a spark to and a unique speed and urgency to a line that came together and was the best since January in Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and himself, Yamamoto. So that was a bright spot. Another bright spot was the emergence of Ethan Bear on defense. His grit, his quickness, his ability to make quick plays, I thought was a real bright spot for the Oilers this year. Yeah, there wasn't much negative because the past 12 years have been just that, right? So coming in, obviously the playoff run wasn't a run at all. And that was really heartbreaking. So I think they're going to use that as fuel for the this next season coming up. And especially with the emergence of getting James Neal coming back over with his gritty play in front of the net, especially on the power play, was key. And I thought he brought a really nice, dirtiness to a rather clean power play. So, yeah.
You've left us speechless, Adam.
I think Barron's frozen. I don't know.
Barron's
I think he's frozen. That looks.
Or
so
he's a really good actor.
I think the bigger issue was the fact that we lacked puck-moving defensemen, and yet you had a fourth liner running third line minutes as your center in Riley Sheehan, who was excellent in the PK. Like, if you want to know why he got a job given his stats, he got a job in Buffalo because he can literally be an efficient elite PK man.
Oh, him and Archibald were crazy.
Excellent there. But they could not move that puck. Russell's not a puck mover. Larson is not a puck mover. A lot of those guys are struggling there to move that, and so they're hemmed in. You all pointed out the fact about McDavid and Draisaitl being like top 2 in the league, but not single one of you actually pointed out the fact that he came off of a surgery that was like a never before done surgery to try to repair his leg in order to play. And literally they had a documentary about it where they would just constantly keep doing things to see if fibers were attached. And he still came in second in the league in scoring, even after having an entire summer of rehabilitation. Not that. I always find that part funny, like, because we're always talking about it because everyone knows he's good. And they're like, oh, McKinnon's a better player. Oh, something else. It's like, not at that age, not coming off that injury, they're not. And that's the weirder part about it. And I think when you look at this team and you say, okay, how'd the regular season go? Their goal was to essentially try to make the playoffs. They had a really good season. They had a terrible December where the numbers were garbage, but at the end of the day, it kind of run that way. We're going to talk a little bit about the playoffs, or essentially in this case, the relegation round. Edmonton had earned themselves technically a spot in the playoffs. They had a 90% chance of making the playoffs at the current record before the NHL season was shut down due to the coronavirus, the COVID-19 incident, which is still occurring and still shutting everything down. So it's an interesting thing to kind of work with, but they ended up dropping to I think it was like something like a 50% chance when they had to play against Chicago. People were pretty stoked about this, like getting Chicago. The round Chicago was not looking strong in the season. They'd taken a drop off. Their number one goaltender was injured. Lots of things were looking favorable for the Edmonton Oilers, but they ended up being trounced in that round 3-1. What do you think happened? We'll start with you, Sanjay, and then we'll go to Adam.
Honestly, I think it might have been a little bit of playoff experience. Like, you got Kane and Taves, and they've won 2 Stanley Cups, 3 Stanley Cups, and going up against a team that has only made it to the playoffs once before with that core group of players. And I think maybe it was just that, you got to learn. What did Gretzky say? You got to learn to lose before you learn to win. And in my opinion, it could have just been that. You look also though at like the offense, like McDavid had an incredible series. Like, he had he had like 9 points in those 4 games, which is insane. And they still lost. So I think the depth really got to them. Everyone's been raving about, the top 2 lines in the Oilers, but the bottom 2 lines, they didn't pull their weight. And so, in my opinion, I think the depth bit them and the experience bit them.
It's interesting you point out to that. You said like depth and experience. I think it was goaltending. If you look at numbers, even someone like Crawford did not actually have amazing numbers. This is Tim. He'll be popping in and out to be a pain in the butt. Did not have amazing numbers throughout the series outside of 1 or 2 games. The rest of the games, he was actually like a .800 goaltender for save percentage. But the Oilers were always worse. So at the end of the day, I think that's what hamstrung them. Adam,
the Oilers' save percentage was the worst of all the playoffs.
Thanks for pointing that out, Pilon. A lot. Actually, I watched every game that they played in that series, and there were a number of really nice Chicago deflections that the goaltenders didn't really have a chance to stop. I agree with the leadership aspect, and those guys know how to win and really amp up a locker room. You see it with Taves time and again. You see Kane as a leader, Keith, like the name goes on, Seabrook, right? But what also really baffled my mind though in that series is the fact that they had the hottest line in hockey from January on, and Tippett didn't put Ryan Nugent-Hopkins with Draisaitl or Yamamoto at all throughout that playoff. Really kind of was mind perplexing to me, because why wouldn't you try to shift that up as opposed to trying to force that RNH and McDavid chemistry, which anyone who plays with McDavid's going to do fine. But I just thought
I was
it was
going
kind of
to say
weird.
the forced chemistry thing.
What's
They
that?
had good chemistry. Nuge had good
No,
numbers
I think
with
so
McDavid.
too.
He did not take a subpar loss.
I think so too, but I think that the rest of the lineup needed a spark, and that move was necessary in terms of providing maybe that extra spark throughout the lineup.
How do we think we're going to do this season? What's our expectations about them? Because I will make this point, which is to something Adam said earlier. Right now, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is not slated to play with Leon Draisaitl or Carlo Yamamoto. He is on the line with Connor McDavid and Cassian, I believe. That is the current line for the Edmonton Oilers. So what are our thoughts for them for this season? They did address some of their issues. I think, Sanjay, you're doing the research on this one. You want to take this one?
Yeah, I got it down on pen and paper here. So coming back from the Edmonton Oilers, number 4th overall draft pick, Jesse Puljujärvi, coming back from Finland, signed a 2-year deal.
Jesse Puljujärvi.
That could be a big signing, if he turns out and he shows up and he's a force. That's a huge signing for him because he's signed a pretty cheap contract. I think it was not cheap, like what I mean. Like I think it was
2 years entry level.
Yeah. They also signed Kyle Turris to center that third line. That was a good signing. I'll give him props. That was a really good signing. Tyson Berry coming over from Toronto. He's coming back to shore up that back end. They signed to fix their biggest need, goaltending. They signed Mike Smith back. Excellent puck handler. Terrific fighter. If you want to scare a goaltender, just don't fight Mike Smith because he's probably the heavyweight goaltender of the North Division. In the draft, I found this interesting. They had 6 draft picks and they were all forwards, including World Canada Junior Dylan Holloway, Calgary kid. So I was a little upset that he ended up in Edmonton. Always want the Calgary kids to kind of stay away from Edmonton, but I'll be cheering for him.
Because they do so good when they end up playing for Edmonton. It just happens. It goes both ways. It's not like Edmonton's best hockey player isn't like a Hall of Famer / Calgary Flames, alumni.
That's true. Yeah. Well, technically St. Albert, so it's a little bit further north than Edmonton. So it's a different, Baron. It's different. Very different.
Love it. And Tim's just working his way across. There you go, buddy.
He's already the most popular person in the podcast. Edmonton re-signed Ethan Bear, 2 years, $4 million. So that was a very good contract. He's slated to be one of their top pairing defensemen. So anytime you can get top 3 defensemen for $2 million a year, that's a win. And leaving is Calgary kid Mike Green. He decided to retire. And Andreas Anthasiou, he also left. And going into the next season, a big question mark, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. You mentioned he's playing on the top line. He is without a contract for next year. Currently getting $6 or $7 million this year. I think it's 6.
6.
6. Yeah. He is slated for a big raise, and Edmonton is right up against the cap, so he could be a trade deadline move if things go south for this team this year.
All right, thank you, Sanjay, for that electrifying summary. Yeah, I know you enjoy researching the Edmonton Oilers because you spend so much time focusing on them, at least during our conversations. It's all you bring up anymore. Not
it's
like
just so
how's
easy,
the
man.
family, or how am I doing, or how's my parents. It's always, when we talk about the Edmonton Oilers.
Only when they do something bad. Like if they're on like a 5-game winning streak.
And you never hear from Sanjay.
Yeah, no, it's just don't even bother. Like Draisaitl wins the Hart Trophy, don't even bother talking to me because I'm just pissed.
Oilers are on a winning streak. We haven't heard from Sanjay in quite a while.
On the drive to watch the game, it was already like 3-0. I was like, wow, this was a tough one. But I heard from you a lot that time.
Which one?
So
the fight one?
The very first Battle of Alberta, I think the one that went to absolute hell before the big fights.
Oh, that was a good one.
Oh, the rest were just golden.
So Sanjay highlighted there's been some major changes to the overall changes. They brought in Dominic Cahoon as well as who was a custom 20-goal scorer who has some chemistry with Draisaitl, likely to slot in there, except that he's currently listed as unavailable to play.
Yeah, he's going to be in a couple days.
Yeah, and then like in Alberta, it's, you have to have like one COVID pass every 6 weeks, and it's whatever. They don't care anymore.
They just ask you, do you have COVID? No. All right, shuffle in.
Yeah. Are you going to Hawaii? Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. Don't forget your lacer.
That's right. But they brought in
This message has been approved by Kenny.
Yeah.
They also brought in, like you said, Kyle Turris, who's kind of rebounding, who'd been a first-line center in Ottawa, a second-line center in Nashville. But apparently, like someone else pointed out this to me, Nashville is where centers go to die. And that is an interesting point, because they have not had a lot of luck there with centers or drafting centers or anything else. So, I mean, when's the last time anyone talked really about Ryan Johansson? Yeah.
It's been a few years.
There was exactly.
Yeah, Matt Duchene.
And
at one
Duchene,
point.
how has Duchene been doing? Like, that guy's on the tail end, it seems like. So there's been lots of turnover in that department. But they brought in those extra scores. They brought in Tyson Berry to quarterback the already elite power play, like the best power play since the 1970s. They lost one of the top PK guys, but they did also bring in some people to focus on that, specifically Kyle Turris, who gives them an option as, I believe he's right-handed, which is something that they were really lacking in center. So with these changes, and I said lose Clefbaum, and they brought back Mike Smith. So with these changes, do you feel confident that the team is actually in a position to do better, make the playoffs, do worse, not make the playoffs? Where do you think they stand so far in the North Division? Pilon.
I think overall they're going to be better. I like a lot of the moves that they've done. I think they have a lot more scoring depth. This is probably the most help. Oh, there's my pet coming into view. It's probably the most scoring depth and help that McDavid and Draisaitl have had. And Tyson Berry is going to be the best offensive defenseman they've ever played for. Like, he got a lot of flack in Toronto, but under Keefe, he was on pace for 47 points. So he can put the puck in the net. He's going to be a great outlet passer. Not great defensively. I mean, this team is not going to do well defensively at all, especially losing Oscar Clefbaum. That really hurts. I mean, they really don't have a true number one defenseman on this team. And I'm not very happy that they brought Mike Smith back. I don't think he's a great goalie. And, with this condensed schedule, they're probably going to have to rely on him a bit more than they had to before. So I'm a little worried in that sense, but still, I think with overall more goal scoring depth, I think they'll be able to outscore a lot of their opposition on most nights. And to be honest, the Canadian division, there aren't a lot of great defensive teams. So I think Edmonton Oilers are going to rack up a lot of goals.
What are your thoughts on the Edmonton Oilers this season and the changes that they made?
Was that me?
Yeah, you're Adam.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
They cut out.
I didn't hear my name.
Fine. It's fine. You have to remind him all the time.
I
have
think
to remind him sometimes, guys.
I think honestly,
Adam, you're on a podcast. You're on a podcast right now,
Adam. I think that the Oilers will be pushing for a 1 or 2 spot in the North Division. I think they've just got the firepower to do it. They might have to win games, 6-5, 5-4. But also there's been a lot of talk about how they need to tighten up defensively. We saw what Tippett could do with them last year in a more defensive defined system. They did well. I think they are going to be 1 or 2.
I think this team's going to end up as a bubble team, personally. I think you're looking at your top 2 stars are probably going to do a lot of heavy lifting throughout the year. I don't think it'll be as easy for Draisaitl to be on the pace that he was last year. I think that Dominic Cahoon will do pretty decent this year, and Tyson Berry will actually. There was lots of talk about why Clefbaum was running the power play last year, because he isn't that offensive minded. He's our most offensive defenseman, but that doesn't mean he's an offensive guy, right? And so it's important to know that they might actually be a little more lethal. It's one of the few where the quarterback was actually run not from the point and the defenseman, but actually from McDavid, right? So I think those things play well. I think they're better all around. They have more offensive skill. They have more depth. And they have lots of guys that can slot in and up. Tyler Ennis is on the top line right now. My guess is Cahoon's going to come in on the third line and then maybe supplant Ennis and so forth, but I think you're going to see a rotation of wingers on McDavid. And people act like this is such a surprise, but like, honestly, go look at the list of guys who played wing for Crosby. Like, you've forgotten so many of them. It has always been a rotating door, and that's just the way it is, because elite offense can do it on its own. You just need some support every once in a while. All right, we're going to give our prediction here. You're just going to flash the number to the screen, what position you think they come in. This is just the North, correct? We're going to do it just for the North?
Yeah.
Where they're going to lie in the North? Okay. All right, so 3, 2, 1, boom.
I have him at
The
number
2
4.
homers pick the highest position numbers. So that's fair. We're going to do a little bit of a switch up here just before we get into our next regular season summary speed run. We're going to focus a little bit on the retro reverse jerseys that Adidas put out this year. Now, these are probably one of the hottest selling items that has come out in the last little while. And in fact, certain ones have already become extremely hard to get. Sanjay's pointing at an old Blasty jersey. Don't be confused. He doesn't have a new one.
Oh, that's a new one.
I know.
Right out of the assembly line. Look at that. It's beauty.
Yeah, and so these have become a hot ticket number. And so what I wanted to hear from you guys is what your favorite 2, and then your favorite 3, I guess, your favorite 3 jerseys, and your least favorite. Sanjay, since you already own one, why don't you tell us?
No surprise. Number 1, got to go with old Blasty there, Calgary Flames. It's a beaut. Come on, man. How could you not love that? It's gorgeous.
It's number 1.
Oh, it's
How could you pick that as number 1 out of all the options?
Oh, man, this is like one of the highest selling ones. They did something that all the fans wanted. Everyone was screaming, "Bring Blasty back." There he is in all his glory. He's back. Number 2, I'm going to go with the Anaheim Ducks. Just seeing that old Wild Wing coming out of the ice is just so many memories of Paul Kariya, Timo Solani wearing that jersey. Number 3, I'm going to go with the Colorado Nordiques, or the Quebec Nordiques, the Avalanche retro ones. I think that one's great. My least favorite, without a doubt, Detroit. Like, they just put no effort into that. It just looks like a practice jersey. And they could have had so many cool stuff, so many cool like designs that they could have come up with. And unfortunately, I think the graphic designer or whoever designed it was like away on vacation, and it was just like their template. And then before they even began, they came back and it was like, "Oh, this is due in half an hour." They're like, "Oh shit!" So they just like, "Oh, that's good enough, done." Like, they're like, at least put some effort in. Even that's the thing, is like, even if it's like really hideous, those are the ones that like people talk about. The biggest sin you could commit for a hockey jersey is boring, and that's what the Detroit one is.
Adam, what are your 3?
My 3, my number 1, I really like the Oilers throwback. I'm going to kind of ease them out, though. I've got a number of them. I really like the LA Kings. I think the numbers pop. It just looks sharp. I really like Carolina Hurricanes, throwback to the Whalers. I love it. I think the gray with the green and blue looks sharp. I also agree with Sanjay with the Colorado Avalanche. Throwing back to the Quebec Nordiques, I thought that was classy and it looks sharp. And I have a 4th as well, or a 5th. It's the New Jersey Devils. I like the green on red. Really like that. My least favorite, I actually have 3. I have Detroit. I have the Islanders. I thought it was lazy as well and kind of boring. I think they could have gone fish sticks. I like that guy. And Pittsburgh. Didn't like Pittsburgh's.
Fish sticks would have sold. Fish sticks would have sold well.
I think so.
Other part.
Yeah.
Elon, what are your favorite and least favorite jerseys? Let's hear it.
I hate to admit it, but my favorite one is the Montreal Canadiens. It looks. I hate to say it. I hate saying it, but I love the reverse on the colors. I think it's a sharp look for them. I agree with LA Kings. I agree with Adam. I think that's really sharp. I love the purple, and the Minnesota Wild. I thought that one looked really sharp too. Yeah. And then I have to agree, Detroit Red Wings. It just looks hideous.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, I'm going to go with my 3. I think my favorite one is the Wild Wing one. That's a hard jersey to find. It's a unique jersey in the sense that nobody does anything else like that ever. And there's reasons for that, but that's okay. That's the one that I like the most. My number 2, and a very slimly number 2, is the Arizona Coyotes
nice.
Purple. And I'm telling you, when you see that jersey on the ice, people are going to think more of it. And that is sold out everywhere. So that one's actually a really great one. My 3rd one, I'm a fan of the. I like Minnesota's a lot too, and I like. I think the third one you probably got to toss it up to the Kings. That is one of the best retro designs where you took two different retro jerseys and combined and made something really pop and stand out. My least favorite goes straight. My honorable mention would be Minnesota, and I think the Montreal one's pretty banging too. My least favorite would probably go to Detroit or the Islanders. And off the board, Vancouver's. I think you took your worst jersey and you put the new colors on it, and you could have done something like the skate on the modern colors. Like, there's so many options. I stole that idea from a friend, but I think he made a really good point. So those are them.
I like the Canucks one, man.
Go ahead.
I think the Canucks one looks nice. It's like that red one that they had back in the day. Like, it's so
like they're one of their crappier jerseys. They just jump jerseys all the time, these guys. Like, they are serial jersey people. There's like a new Canuck jersey every 3 years. And look back at it. Which one do people love? They love the black skate, and they love the first time they went to the purple and the blue and green. Those are the two ones that people really love from that team. Yeah. Also, what are you pointing at? You're pointing at like a
pointing at the hockey skate jersey.
The Canucks one is right there.
I didn't see it in the middle.
It's kind of tilted, but it's there. You know, I couldn't show too much Canucks love.
And the thing about this class of jerseys is that it was one of the strongest, I guess, ensembles of jerseys that have been released in alternates. I think there were a number of them that were just off the charts, super nice. They could be like, oh man, I would actually buy that team's jersey, when you wouldn't really normally venture that avenue, if that makes any sense. And I don't think there were as many that were weaker. Like, I just thought it was a really good class of jerseys.
What did everyone think of the Dallas Stars jersey?
I thought it was just a little too plain. Now, their regular third, the black,
the neon
bright green.
Oh, the neon. That's going to be
so good.
Yeah.
That'll be like one of the nicest jerseys. I'll send you. Keep saying that like Calgary has the highest selling jersey. If you look it up, it's actually Washington. Washington has the highest selling retro reverse jersey.
Yeah. Because I hear like Calgary was in like the top
lying.
5. No, man, I heard Calgary.
Oh, see how the story changes.
The top selling in Canada.
Top 5, guys. Now it's top 5.
Hey, that's another nice one, though. Maybe. The Washington one is nice. They brought back the Screaming Eagle. I like that one.
I wasn't a huge fan of it. Now I look at it more, and I'm like, I get the appeal.
I will say an honorable dishonorable mention is the Vegas one.
Yeah,
like, that thing. Poor. I don't know what they were thinking. Like, it's one of those ones that is just so like hideous that like in 20 years people will look back and be like, was that an actual jersey? And then like everyone will try to find it in 20 years because they'll be like, I actually kind of like that one now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so many like ugly jerseys that people just pass on. And
I think they're in such a difficult position though too, because like, what's retro to a team that's been in the league for what, 3 years?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I guess. True. I mean, I do like their gold one. That one looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, since we're talking about things that are hideous, we're going to get into the Calgary Flames regular season summary speed run.
It was the Calgary Flames' 40th season, but there wasn't much celebrating to start the campaign. First, they lost the Heritage Classic to the Jets. Then TJ Brodie collapsed during a practice and began convulsing. It took him 2 weeks to recover. Later that month, the Flames were shut out in 3 straight road games for the first time in franchise history. On the 29th, Bill Peters resigned as head coach after allegations of racism from Akeem Alou. Jeff Ward was named interim head coach. Things then turned around for the Flames. With 6 straight wins, Ward tied Mario Tremblay for the longest winning streak by a coach after taking over mid-season. At the All-Star break, the Flames were sitting in a 4-way tie for second in the Pacific with 57 points. Matthew Tkachuk, Mark Giordano, and David Riddick were named to the All-Star team. On February 14th, Cam Talbot made the most saves in a shutout in Flames history, 44 against the Ducks. At the trade deadline, the Flames traded for Eric Gustafsson and Derek Forbort. When the season was suspended, the Flames were sitting 4th in the Pacific Division, 8th in the Western Conference, with 79 points in 70 games, a 93-point pace. Now let's take a look inside the numbers. The Flames were pretty average across the board. In terms of offense and puck possession, they were good at creating scoring chances, but bad at giveaways. On defense, they gave up a lot of shots and scoring chances, but were great at limiting high-danger chances. They were also great at takeaways and had a good penalty kill. Team captain Mark Giordano may not have had a Norris-caliber season like he did in 2018-2019, but he was recognized for his leadership abilities, winning the Marc Messier NHL Leadership Award. And that is the Calgary Flames regular season summary speed run.
All right, so the Calgary Flames had a pretty successful regular season. Heading into it, they were one of the teams expected to have a good run at the playoffs at the end. It was always the goal to make the playoffs. Considering some of the changes they brought at the start of the season, there was lots of high hopes and energy going into it. Things faltered for a little bit there, and especially around kind of the removal of Bill Peters. But after the team kind of found its identity and kind of went on a bit of a roll again, they saw life out of Cam Talbot, which was probably shocking to Calgary fans as much as it was to Oilers fans. And they made a lot of progress moving in, especially towards the play-in round before the season shut down due to COVID. How is everybody feeling about the Calgary Flames regular season? What are their thoughts on how they achieved and what they did? We'll go to resident Flame night, Sanjay, who's a long-suffering Flames fan and probably has the most knowledge to go from here.
Yeah, man, going into the season, expectations were sky high. I mean, the year before, they had won the Western Conference. They were the number one seed in the regular season, and then they just got trounced by Colorado. Like, McKinnon just ran their show in that playoff round. So expectations were, okay, you know, they did good in the regular season. They got a lesson in playoff hockey. Let's continue that and do the next step forward. So, you know, there was a lot of pressure on the top lines. And if you look at the points for Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan, they were way down. You know, 2 years ago, Gaudreau had 99 points, which is like one of the 10 best seasons in Flames history. Like Jerome McGinley never got 99 points in a season. So to give you some, you know, give you some perspective on how good of a season he had, I think he finished fourth in the MVP voting. And last year, his points were down. And it really was the emergence of Matthew Tkachuk that kind of led this team. You know, he's really taken over that leadership role. Everyone in Calgary is talking like he is the next captain after Mark Giordano either leaves the team or if he steps down as captain and hands the C over to Matthew Tkachuk. And so you look at the season and they did make the playoffs, but they finished third in the division behind the Oilers, which is never a good thing, and behind the Golden Knights. So, you know, during the regular season, I think it was a mixed bag. I think I would give it like a B- grade if I had to grade it. We did make the playoffs, the Flames made the playoffs, but you know, there was a lot of like tribulation and trials that they had to go through. The Bill Peters thing was a huge thing that happened, and it was a terrible thing that happened. And the Flames had to move on from that. And Jeff Ward did a tremendous job with that team and refocusing them. And they really, you know, they really hit their stride after Jeff Ward took over as the head coach. So, you know, I would say I would give it like a B- as a grade.
Adam, what are your thoughts on the Flames regular season performance here?
Yeah, you know, it's frustrating, but nice to see Cam Talbot bounce back and become that contending, fighting goaltender that he was the first year that the Oilers got him. I think the change was a breath of fresh air for Lucic as well. You know, I think they've got one of the best instigators in the league behind maybe Brad Marchand and Tkachuk. As frustrating as he is, he's exactly the type of player everyone wants on their team. Gets under the skin of everyone. I also really like that. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but Mangiapane. Yeah. I thought he had a decent year as well. always liked Mark Giordano, but I've always had a problem with the relationships that the Flames and Oilers had doing commercials together, like back when Eberle and Giordano were, doing those ATV financial commercials. I know this is going off the rails a bit, and we're back on renting Adam. But I really like how that flame has been reignited between the two. And, I've always kind of started really thinking that Gaudreau is this type of player now, as opposed to that high 90s player, because, they took out the stick tapping, and, you saw his game just kind of fall off, and he kind of lost some identity there. Always really liked Sean Monahan. I think they've got a really good core of players. It's just a matter of how they kind of come out with all these new acquisitions that they've gained this year. I think their goaltending got better with Markstrom coming in, and I'm interested to see how it goes this year.
Go on.
Yeah, I think the season was okay. Compared to the season prior, it was kind of a letdown. Both offensively and defensively, they didn't do as well as the season before. Sanjay talked already about the drop-off from Gaudreau and Monahan. Gaudreau's usually a point per game player. Monahan's usually a 30 goal scorer. They just didn't reach those totals. And on defense, I'd have to say Hamonic and Hanifin were a big disappointment. Their numbers really dropped off, and I think that really let the team down. And they relied more on Hamonic and Hanifin this year, and it didn't work.
Yeah, it seemed weird that they tried to put those two together, but once when the playoffs started, or the return to play, and Hamonic opted out, they put Anderson with Hanifin, and that pairing really took off. Like, I'm expecting that actually to be your top pairing next season, even ahead of Giordano.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I actually think like that pairing was tremendous. So I have actually high hopes for Hanifin. I think maybe just the fit wasn't there, but Anderson, he's a younger guy than Hamonic, and I don't know, he just has like an energy to him, and I think it's a great pairing, and it's going to work out for them.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Hamonic, and I think he kind of anchored Hanifin down last season. Like, he had a great season the year before, but I think that was kind of an anomaly as compared to how he usually performs.
It'll be interesting to see how
There's a lot of talk about his foot speed disappearing too, like that he's actually slowed down a lot in the last 2 years. Hamonic, that is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens too without the presence of TJ Brody, who was such a homebody for the Flames and such an impact player for them as well.
Yeah. Well, even though the regular season might have been a bit of a disappointment and some of the drop-off in production, the postseason was all jubilations here when it came to it. The Calgary Flames ended up beating the tightly matched, and it was actually considered to be one of the harder matchups, Winnipeg Jets in fashionable style, first eliminating their top center in game one, and then slowly taking apart the rest of the team therefore after. So it actually, it's a pretty impressive feat that they were able to do that and get into the playoff round. And things there were a little less productive, as it was hard to always kind of come up against the team that would go to the Stanley Cup Finals in the Dallas Stars. But still, like, to get out of that relegation round, to get into that first round when that was technically a question mark heading into towards the end of the regular season, that's a pretty big move. And I think that's a really nice side effect there where you actually have some confidence to build on moving forward. You got to see the growth of people like Kachuk, which is something the Calgary fan base has really latched onto, as Sanjay pointed out. What's interesting to me from that has been, it's kind of a little bit of a turn on Johnny Hockey there from that. Like, people were like frustrated with his play. People were not happy. Like, he did not score a, is that correct? He was really having some issues getting point production in those playoff rounds. And that was something that really struck with that fan base where they felt like maybe it was time to kind of start moving on. What are your thoughts on that, Adam?
Sorry?
To you, Adam.
Oh, sorry.
It's
Repeat that last part, Baron.
He didn't listen to any of that.
6 minutes.
No, I did.
What? What's going on? You guys talking hockey?
Baron's so boring. God.
No, I did. I was
Talk
listening.
about the
Sorry.
Oilers again.
Is he still talking?
Yeah,
When are we
talk
gonna get
about
to the Oilers, guys?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't
my
want the Oilers
God.
anymore. I want to go to bed.
No. I glanced at my phone, at my Twitter feed. Sorry. What
what's
was
breaking?
the last part?
It's 1-1 in the game right now for Finland, USA. I'll tell you that much.
Ooh.
I said that it's kind of been a switch towards Kachuk in the movement away from Johnny Gaudreau, where it felt like the fan base was kind of a little more upset with him and a little sick of him.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Kind of towards it. So where do you think about that and that change that's occurring?
Yes, I think now we're going to see a shift towards maybe that trade bait for Johnny. And, he's from Jersey. Could there be a deal there? He wants to probably go back and play there at some point. I do see that shift, though, and I think it's a safer time to have that happen as opposed to a couple of years ago where he was kind of a newer all-star on that team. And I don't know. I don't think it would hurt them as much as a lot of people might think it would.
So, what do you think about this team?
Return.
Do you think right now that they have a number one center in Monahan?
Oh, absolutely. 30 goal scorers, not every team has them. And him on the top line playing with Johnny Gaudreau. Like, I just want to get back to a point, Adam, you said. I think if they trade Johnny Gaudreau, I think that would be a huge mistake. I mean, I sent you guys a message about the day they traded Doug Gilmour that just came up.
Yeah.
This would be, like, maybe not on par, but it would be pretty darn close. Like, people don't just get 99 points in the NHL by accident in a season. And if they're going to trade him, he's still under 30 years old, and he's still got a good contract. Like, he's making less than $7 million a year. And if they trade him, it would just be a disaster. Like, you always lose a trade if you give up the best player. And no matter what the Flames get back, if they're trading with New Jersey, I look at that roster and I'm like, who would make the Flames better if you swap out Johnny Gaudreau? Philadelphia. I mean, if he was paid not $10 million a year, maybe, but I think the cap might handcuff the team. You look at Philadelphia, another place that people always say, oh, he's American, he wants to play. I don't get that, man. No one has said, like, oh, Joe Sakic he's from Burnaby, he wanted to go to Vancouver from Colorado. Craig Conroy played his entire career, pretty much came back to Calgary and played here. I honestly don't see, just because a person's an American doesn't mean that they want to play in the US. Like, Canadians play in American cities all the time, and Americans play up in Canada all the time. So for me, I think that's just people reporters putting two and two together, be like, oh, he's from there, he must want to go back there. I don't see it, man. I don't see it. Maybe I'm just like being a homer or what, but I think if they trade Gaudreau, it would be a massive mistake. And yeah, maybe he's not going to put up, 99 points, but, for him to be like on like the first or second line, to get a player like that, it doesn't come around every day. And he's still like really good on the power play. He's still driving that line. You look at Sean Monahan.
You're turning into Adam. You're starting to rant now. All right, we're going to take a quick look at some of the changes that occurred in the Calgary Flames. First off, big move was that Bill Peters was let go, and interim head coach Geoff Ward was made permanent head coach, or at least permanent till they let him go, like they do every coach. Not them, but like hockey in general. In Jacob Markstrom, the Calgary Canucks, the Vancouver Flames, it's so hard to keep track of. In is Jacob Markstrom as the new number one goaltender for the Calgary Flames, and a poor man's TJ Brody and Chris Tanev. Basically the same price for a guy that does. Yeah, but he does everything else less well. Out, TJ Brody to the Leafs, Eric Gustafsson to the Philadelphia Flyers, Travis Hamonic to Vancouver on a PTO, and former first-round draft pick Mark Jankowski gone as well. Also, fan favorites Cam Talbot and Tobias Reeder. For some reason, they brought back Zach Rinaldo, Buddy Robinson, and Ryan Lomberg. Some nice depth signings for them, Louis Domingue and Garrett Sparks. Garrett Sparks on a PTO. And the continued love affair with Michael Stone has kind of occurred, hey?
We just want his brother.
Third time.
We're going to bring his brother in. Be like, your brother's here, Mark, if you want to come here, play with Calgary.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you keep trying, but it's like they clearly don't want to play together at all. Eh?
The Niedermeyers, it worked for the Niedermeyers in Anaheim, so we're hoping it works here.
It's true. And then Josh Levo is another Vancouver Canuck that made its way. And I know deep down you're still hoping that Jay one day makes his way to the Flames uniform so that you can finally rip off Kachuk from all those jerseys and put
19 fits into 83 pretty nice. It'll cover up all the numbers, so it'll be fine.
So, Bilon, since you got cut out of the last conversation, what do you think about the changes that they made?
I think I think they're going to be worse defensively. I think losing TJ Brody is going to really hurt. I think he was their second best defenseman. But I don't think it's going to hurt as much as you might think. I think Hanifin will bounce back. I don't think he'll be anchored down by Hamonic. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Hamonic, so him being gone is a plus, addition by subtraction. And Rasmus Andersson, like Sanjay said, I think he has shown that he's going to be a great talent, and I think if he can improve, that'll help. They brought in Tanev, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tanev,
Yes,
yeah. So I mean, I'm not Tanev, Hamonic. I really don't know if Tanev's much of an improvement over Hamonic, to be honest. But he can fit in there. He's going to help a bit on the defensive side of things. So defensively, not as great. But goaltending, they improved their goaltending. Goaltending wasn't necessarily their issue last season, but you bring in Jacob Markstrom, who had an amazing season. And not that I necessarily think he is as an elite goaltender as his previous season was. Like on average, he's usually at 911, not 918 save percentage. But, he's still an improvement, and that's going to help with the defensive side of things as well. And then I just think overall, offensively, they're going to improve just because Gaudreau and Monahan I expect to bounce back. And they got some depth with like Josh Levo. So I think they'll improve there. So improvement in offense and goaltending. Defense takes a bit of a hit.
Adam, what are your thoughts on the changes the Calgary Flames made this offseason?
Well, I think they might help slightly because we've seen this with Lucic going over, Tobias Reeder going over, Talbot going over. So this Western Canadian mutt of a team might actually do okay. I really like the acquisition. I think their best acquisition of the offseason was getting Markstrom. My biggest question is, will he fit their system? We've seen changes with good goaltenders on teams where they were solid, moves such as Bobrovsky and suffer in Florida's market, right? So I'm interested to see how Markstrom does. I'm sure he'll do fine. I'm sure he'll do horrible against the Oilers. But But I also agree with the fact that I think their defense declines with the loss of Brody. But who knows? I think it gets better slightly with the loss of Hamonic. I as well thought that Hamonic, I think his game is slated for a slower paced hockey style, if that makes any sense, right?
That makes no sense.
Well, I think the game's faster.
I'm joking.
Okay. Yeah.
Sanjay, I want you to just counter argue with anything you disagreed with that those two said. Just anything. Just pick something.
Yeah.
You like,
So, sorry, Pila. I know you were saying like goaltending. You don't think it was an issue for them last year. I would say like in the playoffs, it was the biggest issue for them. If you look at the stats in Cam Talbot, you'll be like, okay, his numbers look good. And it wasn't necessarily the amount of goals that he let in.
The Sanjay eye test.
But it was the kind of goals and the times that the goals were going in. He would let in, some soft goals near the end of games against Dallas that really turned the tide of that series. I mean, they were like, what was it, like a minute from being up 3-1, and then they were up in game 6, 3-0, and then a couple weak goals, and before you know it, they lose 7-3 or 7-4. So I think with Markstrom, he's going to stabilize that. I mean, ever since Kiprusoff left, they haven't had a number one goalie, and that was a long time ago that Mika left. So I think this is going to be a tremendous turnaround in goaltending with Markstrom in there, and I think that's going to do huge things for them, and I'm really excited to see him play. Because he looked terrific in Vancouver, and I hated shooting against him in Vancouver. So now that he's on the Flames side, that's a huge win for them.
All right, we're going to do our prediction of where this team is going to end up in the North. So just throw your fingers up, and we'll show where we're at on this one. And then we're going to move into our next segment. So on 3, 2, 1. I'm the low guy, eh? Wow. I didn't think I would.
Figures that the two Oiler fans have them lower, eh? Just matter of fact.
Hey, rewind the video.
Sanjay, I think you and I are like exactly the same on both your predictions so far, I think.
Yeah. Well, great minds
I don't
think
like you
alike.
guys.
That's
We
right.
don't cheer for the Oilers, so you're
Yeah.
already my second favorite person on the podcast.
It is nice not to get ganged up by these two for once.
Oh, whatever.
I think
like,
the Leafs are good, and they're like, no,
Ferdinand.
Matthews is
No, it's not.
terrible.
Yeah.
Draisaitl this. Did you see how good we were in the
Draisaitl,
80s?
Draisaitl.
just
Adam
remember
and
that
Aaron.
you can't
Adam
even
and
have Matthews in the same conversation as Draisaitl anymore. Like, it's not even, they don't even talk about Matthews in the same conversation as McDavid or Draisaitl. Now it's like, oh, McDavid's not as good as McKinnon, but they don't even talk about any of the Leafs anymore. It's gotten so bad. We're gonna do a quick thing here, which is I asked you guys to think of a bold prediction you're gonna make for this year. Something that you think might occur or happen. So I want to hear everyone's bold prediction. We're going to start with you, Pilon. What is your bold prediction for this season?
Well, speaking of Austin Matthews, who no one ever talks to anymore, I believe he's going to win the Rocket Richard Trophy.
Ooh.
I think the Canadian division,
the
like I
odds
said,
on that,
what's that?
the odds on that would pay out nicely. I think it's like 7 or 8.
Oh yeah. I think the Canadian division, like I said, there's only a couple of teams where I think they're any good defensively. And Matthews was only 1 goal off of the Rock Richard last season, and I think he's going to do it this year.
Adam, what is your bold prediction for this NHL season?
My bold prediction for this NHL season is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, playing on a line with Connor McDavid, is going to push for the scoring title this year.
Nugent Hopkins?
Nugent Hopkins is going to get the scoring title?
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I did not stutter.
You better hope not, because that's going to cost the Oilers
Wow.
like $10 million a year if he
Okay,
gets
and what's
there.
the payout on that one, Baron?
Trade bait.
Oh, God, I don't
Is
know
that
if you
even
can bet
on the
that.
Vegas betting line?
You wanted a bold
No.
prediction. I gave a bold prediction.
It's true. Like, we did ask for a bold prediction, and the guy did it.
Okay.
What about you there, Sanjay? What is your bold prediction this year?
I think that the rookie of the year, everyone's talking about all these rookies coming in, and I mentioned Mika Kiprusoff. I'm going to talk about another Finnish Flame, and that's defenseman Juuso Välimäki. He's going to win the rookie of the year, playing for the Flames.
That's bold.
That's bold.
Välimäki, eh?
Yeah, get your
Alright.
jersey early so you don't say you're a bandwagon fan. Get the old Blasty lettered up with Juuso.
My bold prediction is that Boston and the Blues are going to struggle to make it to the playoffs this year.
Do they make it or
Based
not,
off
Baron?
the fact that the Blues are letting go of a number, I'm going to say no. Boston's actually, I kind of thought they wouldn't, listening to a lot of the stuff, and it sounds like they're going to get a lot of their players back, but they still lost 2 of their core defensemen. They do have Rask back, which is huge, and they've signed their guys. But I don't know, losing Pasternak, losing Marchand, he's back at practice. We'll see. I'm going to say that they don't this year, that there's just a lot of turnover, and they seem like they were on their last legs. And the Blues, I think losing Pietrangelo is going to make a huge difference on that team. Justin Falk is in placement, despite the fact that you paid him the money you should have paid Pietrangelo. So losing him, losing Tarasenko, I just think there's some big wheels falling off of that bus, and I think it's just going to come home to roost this year. And if not this year, then we'll just pass it on to next year. I'll make the same prediction then when I'm wrong. So, but that's my bold prediction, which means it's probably wrong. All right, with that, we're going to move towards our final one for this evening, which is the Vancouver Canucks. We're going to go into our regular season summary speed run, so you can hit it and check this video out.
It was the Vancouver Canucks' 50th season as an NHL franchise. Before their home opener, the team named Bo Horvat the 14th captain in Canucks history. As part of the half-century celebration, the team brought back their popular flying skate jerseys from the 90s. On December 3rd, Alex Burrows was honored by being placed in the club's Ring of Honor. In just his second game back after taking time off to attend his father's funeral, and with his mother watching in the stands, Jacob Markstrom made 43 saves for a 1-0 shutout victory against the Hurricanes. The Canucks went into the All-Star break sitting on top of the Pacific Division with 58 points. Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, and Jacob Markstrom were named to the All-Star team. On January 30th, the Canucks won their 9th straight game at home. The club record is 11. On February 13th, the Canucks retired the jerseys of Henrik and Daniel Sedin. The Canucks didn't wait for the trade deadline to add some scoring punch, making a trade with the Kings for Tyler Toffoli. When the season was suspended, the Canucks were 3rd in the Pacific, 7th in the West, with 80 points in 69 games, a 95-point pace. Now let's take a look inside the numbers. The Canucks were below average at generating shots and scoring chances, yet they had the 8th most goals per 60 minutes thanks to a great power play and good shooting percentage. When it came to defense, the Canucks were horrible. The only 2 categories here where they finished them on the top half of the league were save percentage and block shots. Defenseman Quinn Hughes had a tremendous rookie campaign, scoring 53 points in 68 games. Only 17 rookie defensemen in NHL history have reached 50 points. Hughes was a finalist for the Calder Memorial Trophy, and he was also named to the NHL All-Rookie team. And that was the Vancouver Canucks regular season summary speedrun.
We had the Vancouver Canucks placed 4th in the Pacific Division, 9th in the conference last year. They had 36 wins, 27 losses, and 6 overtime losses for a total of 78 points. They lost a lot of players this offseason in Chris Tanev, Troy Stecher, Tyler Toffoli, and they replaced Jacob Markstrom, which was probably their largest loss, and he's been replaced with Holtby from the Washington Capitals. They also traded a 3rd-round draft pick for Nate Schmidt, puck-moving defenseman from the Vegas Golden Knights, and recently signed Travis Hamonic to a tryout. So don't be surprised if they pack a bit of a sting. They've been a bit of a surprise over the past couple years with Travis Green as their coach, with a weaker defense and downgrade in goaltending with Demko and Holtby pairing. So we'll see how that kind of turns out. But they did take a lot of hits in terms of team turnover.
Nice. What are your thoughts on their regular season there, Ryan?
Kind of like the Edmonton Oilers, I felt like they have some really elite players, but lack of depth. Even more so lack of depth than the Oilers, I would say. And it also seemed like they focused more on offense this season as compared to the previous year, but that came at the expense of defense for them.
Sanjay?
Yeah, man, I thought Pettersson really came into his own last season and showed that he's an elite player. And the fact that they made the playoffs and they had a deep run, deeper than any other Canadian team, shows that they're built for the playoffs, and they're a veteran team that has a lot of exciting players playing as well. A lot of young, exciting players playing as well. So for me, I would be, as a Canucks fan, if I was a Canucks fan, I would be pretty happy with their regular season and how it went.
Adam?
Yeah, I think they were one of the league's bigger surprises last year in terms of standings. They were right there with the Flames and the Oilers and Vegas in the Pacific Division. I think we were really surprised at the skill level of Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. And, I think bringing in that veteran leadership 2 years ago in Beagle right off the cup win was huge. And he had such a great goaltending tandem in Markstrom and whoever is the backup, as long as they could win a couple games for them. I thought they had a really good season, and for them to, move on into the first round of the playoffs last year as well was huge. I think their season was a success, and I think that also had to do with Travis Green as the coach.
Nice. All right. Well, moving to the playoffs, they are actually the team that had with the best success out of most of the Canadian teams. They kind of shocked up, built partially on Markstrom, but also based a little bit on the fact there that when Markstrom went out, Demko stepped in, which is part of the reason why they were okay letting Markstrom walk here, even though he'd become their number one. That kind of off-season success, as you said, were built for the playoffs. let's talk a little bit about that. Like, I think that this is a team that did some damage and caught people off guard more so than I would have thought for other teams. But where are you guys feeling about that, Sanjay?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, they were able to take Vegas to 7 games, and it was a tight series. And you mentioned Demko. He kind of came into his own, and it'll be interesting to see how he plays this year. We've seen many times in the past goaltenders light it up in the postseason for a brief time, and then when the regular season starts, they can't handle that load. I still think bringing in Holtby is great, and I think they're going to split it more 50-50 this year, just given the schedule. So, yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if they make another solid run again this year.
Yeah, Pilon, what are your thoughts about their ability in the playoffs, and if you think that'll carry over this season?
I think their performance in the playoffs was, to be honest, a little overrated. Everyone after the playoffs was done was talking about how Vancouver was going to be the best Canadian team going forward until their offseason changed some minds. But like really, when you look at their statistics in the playoffs overall, they got outplayed. Offensively, they didn't get a lot of shots and scoring chances. Defensively, they let up a lot. And it was really goaltending. They relied on some really hot goaltending to carry them in the playoffs.
Adam?
Yeah, like I said, like they were a surprise last year, but I think they lost too much in net. And it's going to be interesting to see how they make that adjustment moving forward.
So given some of the changes here, like, and then you kind of went over a lot of those changes that already occurred.
Yeah.
Here with Markstrom leaving and so forth. Where do we think they stand here? Like, to me, losing Markstrom is actually bad, not because I think Markstrom's like the best goalie, but I think because he did so well within that system and that system built with him. So I think that's going to be an issue there. But they did lose a lot of their depth there. And I think Pilon made a really good point there, which was lots of the conversation was about this team is like the best looking team moving forward, and then all of a sudden that offseason came and it just seemed like the wind was pulled out of the sails. They got a reliable backup in Holtby, who's coming off arguably one of his worst seasons, but is still a veteran goaltender, can still perform, and they still have some of the brightest stars in Besser and Pettersson, and they're still building up there. But like, is it feasible to see that same success moving forward?
Oof. I think it is, but I think it's going to be harder for them without that goaltending depth. I think Demko could take a step, and especially with a veteran leader like Holtby, who has the experience in winning, and we've seen Holtby play his heart out a number of times, right? It's going to be difficult. Like, he's older as well, so is he just going to be like at the end of his career? Is he going to be an impactful leader as a backup goalie to Demko? Who knows? Or is it going to be that tandem? Like, I could see it being more of that tandem, much like Mike Smith and Koskinen. So I don't know. It's hard to say, but I really do think they lost a lot in Markstrom. You're only as good as your goaltender.
See,
Let's do our predictions here. Go ahead there, Pilon.
That's fine. If we want to go to predictions, we can.
Oh, if you have something deep to say.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know if losing Markstrom is going to hurt as much as people think. Like I said, he had an amazing season last year, but the previous 3 seasons before that, his average was .911, which is fairly average. Ooh. So, and you look at Braden Holtby, he had a bad season last year, but the 3 seasons before that, he had a 914 save percentage. So, I could see Holtby bouncing back and having a good season, and Demko looked like the real deal in the playoffs. We'll have to see if he can do that in the regular season consistently or not. But, he may be the next big thing in Vancouver. So I think they might be okay in the goaltending department. And I think they improved big time on defense with Nate Schmidt. Defense, I think, was their biggest weakness last year, and they addressed that by bringing him in from Vegas. So I think that was a big win for them.
Schmidt was a big win, and they got him for a good cost. I do think it's interesting, though. You mentioned Holtby, but I mean, if you look, the further away guys get from working with Mitch Korn, the more they drop off. that is a big one there. We're doing both predictions here, our countdown, which is to show where we think this team is going to lay in the North. We'll do that together at this one. 3, 2, 1. Fifth. So let's take a quick look here and go with who we think will be the actually we're going to discuss it because it's World Juniors wrapping up essentially tomorrow. Canada's going to the gold medal. Looks like the U.S. will be as well. Let's talk about your jersey that you're wearing a little bit today. Pilon, let's start with yours there. You're rocking the nice.
Why are we starting with me?
Why not?
Well, because
I don't know, because you're the first one in my circle here.
If everyone saw our our Twitter chat, Twitter, it's getting late. These three talk about jerseys nonstop, and I own like 3 jerseys. But anyways, this is the Vancouver Olympics jersey, and I got it for free from a family member who didn't want it. So
that's a nice family member.
Yeah.
My family would never give me anything for free.
Yeah, and in fact, I don't even know if you're in Puvins, like if he dies, jersey.
I wasn't even invited to Barron's wedding, and we're family. So
that's fair. In fairness, neither was Pilon, and then Adam.
Adam was, but he didn't go either. So
I was a close contact. I was a fucking close contact.
Swearing. This is a family podcast.
We're gonna have the explicit tag in YouTube.
I know. Still
you have to put up the thing. You have to put up like an emoji over his face now.
Yeah.
Sanjay, let's hear about your jersey. Sanjay, let's hear about your jersey.
Oh, sorry. You keep cutting out whenever you say a name. So besides the jerseys in the back, I decided to rock just to stick a knife in these Edmonton Oilers fans. Calgary Flames, the retro, or I guess it's their like full-time jersey now, and crested with Mr. Matthew Tkachuk, everyone's favorite Calgary Flame.
Those are great looking iron-on letters. You can't even barely tell that you just iron them on yourself. On
No, these are the real sewn-on letters. So,
Adam, let's hear about your jersey.
I've got a Canadian Olympic jersey.
That one's nice.
It's slick. It's got the Canada. It's got the golden leaf there. It's got the. They won this year, so there should be another golden leaf, and the female team's winnings. Solid. It's my first Olympic jersey in Team Canada. I got it crested with Crosby. Yeah.
Very nice.
I really like the black. It was different. It was different than the red and the white, and I really like the black.
Yeah, yours is the Sochi, I think.
Yeah.
If I'm correct. Yeah, yours is the Sochi one. Mine is the 100th one, the 1914 to 2014 Team Canada one. Just says a Canada straight across the chest. This one was, I think, $15 from Sports Check on clearance, which was a solid buy. And probably one day be a McDavid sporting a different number than 97, because I think he wore 17 or 19. I can't remember the year he played for them, but this was the jerseys. So it's always a sweet grab. Anyways, with that, welcome back to Delayed Offside. Hope you're willing to, I hate myself for saying this, click like and subscribe. How long you say? Because it sounds less
great.
Bad when you
it sounded great when you said
yeah,
it.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, thanks for coming back. So hopefully we're going to keep up with our content, get it going. Enjoy the new videos, enjoy stuff like that. Enjoy us ripping on Sanjay. Just a little bit of everything for all those hockey fans.
Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Delayed Offside 2, the number 2.
Yeah, 2, because there was a soccer one that had it first, and they don't even exist anymore. But we're stuck with 2.
Is there offside in soccer? What?
Yeah. Who knows? All right. With that, I'm Baron.
I'm Adam.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Sanjay.
This is Delayed Offside. Thanks for listening.
Delayed Offside.